Shadiversity's novel Shadow of the Conqueror fails to capture a meaningful redemption story. Shad needs to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, which perfectly captures an impactful redemption story centering around the disgraced Prince Zuko. Zuko's redemption story is not only believable, but also entertaining and most importantly, inspiring, whereas Shadiversity's story Shadow of the Conqueror fails in each of these regards. There are three key aspects that Shadiversity's redemption story is missing, but that Avatar: The Last Airbender artfully demonstrates with Zuko's redemption. The first of these three key aspects is the personal sin. At the beginning of Shadiversity's story, it isn't super clear what the protagonist Daylen did that was evil. He tells the reader that he's bad, but he doesn't show it. Whereas in Avatar, our first look at Zuko shows him terrorizing villagers, unleashing lethal bursts of fire, and abusing the elderly. At this point, the series would be unimaginable without Zuko being pitted against Aang as his antagonistic foil. That's what makes his redemption so insane. No one would have seen it coming from the first episode. Daylen's crimes are only alluded to at the beginning, making it hard to view him as a truly despicable person. It isn't until you reach the novel's end that you learn that Daylen murdered 28 million people and violated 427 girls. Perhaps some would think that these staggering numbers add depth to Daylen's redemption, but no one cares about numbers. Numbers don't evoke emotion, they just seem made up and ethereal. And while Zuko never murdered 28 million people, his small interactions carry more impact, as they aren't just being told to us, but shown. Shadiversity is breaking the biggest rule of kindergarten. In kindergarten, there's always that one kid who thinks he has to drizzle an entire bottle of glue just to get one bean to stick to his paper, but in reality he would have accomplished this with just one little drop, and so the teacher and the class need to remind him a drop is a lot. You don't need to say that your bad guy killed 28 million people to make him convincing. You just need to show him betraying, lying, or harming innocent people. Additionally, this information would have been super important at the beginning of the story to properly demonstrate Daylen's change. When someone wants to demonstrate the success of their weight loss journey, they'll first show you a picture of them at their lowest point, and then they'll contrast this to how they are now. This contrast only works when you see the lowest that they could be, and this is where Shadiversity's first big failure comes from: a lack of personal sin. Not only do you have to see this character being evil, but you have to see how this character's bad actions are harming so many people around him. This has to be personal. It can't just be a statistic. It has to be something emotional and something that's demonstrated, not just talked about. Anyway, the second key aspect where Shadiversity's redemption story fails is with the cost of change. Redemption requires two things. First, humiliation, and second, responsibility. The character needs to undergo immense emotional and possibly physical pain, as well as take responsibility for their actions, before they can transform into something greater. About halfway through the book, we learn about how Shadiversity's character had a bunch of underage concubines. But before that comes to the reader's attention, Daylen, the main character, stops a violation mid-act. It turns out that the perpetrator was also the father of the victim. And the way that Shadiversity's character Daylen ends up seeking justice is yanking off the man's tallywhacker.
What? What the fuck?
Chewbacca tearing out people's arms from their sockets is savage and cool, but grabbing another man's Mr. Happy is not cool. It's gay.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
Additionally, there needs to be a cost of redemption. For example, this man was punished for being a sexual predator by getting his Mr. Happy torn off, but why didn't that happen to Daylen too, since he was guilty of the same crime but 427 times? Daylen's actions don't make you feel like he's being redeemed, but that he's just being a hypocrite. Daylen's attempts of atonement seem to be centered around him inflicting pain on others, rather than receiving any deserved pain himself. Now this is where Zuko's redemption arc from Avatar: The Last Airbender succeeds. Let's take a look at one of Prince Zuko's most vile crimes. After Zuko and his uncle flee into the Earth Kingdom as fugitives, they are taken in by a widowed mother and her humble daughter Song. Song and her mother are very poor farmers who have clearly faced immense suffering and poverty due to the war. Yet they still manage to keep their humanity and invite Zuko and his uncle Iroh for dinner, sharing what little they have. Rather than offering thanks, Zuko steals Song's ostrich horse, which she likely needed for her survival. While this crime may seem much smaller in comparison to murdering 28 million people, it somehow stings more than Daylen's atrocities, as this sin was so personal. We saw the humility and kindness of this poor family, which was juxtaposed to Zuko's arrogance and vileness. At this point, viewers had already learned a lot more about Zuko's complexities, and maybe even started to feel bad for him. But after committing such a despicable act to a family that was so kind to him, all sympathy held for Zuko was flushed away. In this section of the story, Zuko conceals his identity as a disgraced heir to the throne of the Fire Nation, and he pretends to be a mere traveler. Similarly, in Shadiversity's story, Shadow of the Conqueror, Daylen uses a false identity, concealing that he is Dayless the Conqueror. This takes us to where Zuko redeems himself for the horrendous act of stealing Song's chicken horse. While Zuko never meets Song again, the writers were able to demonstrate Zuko's definite change of heart. Once again, Zuko meets a family ravaged by war. Their eldest son, a much-needed farmhand, was drafted to fight. This is similar to how Song's father was also gone, and presumably slain in battle. Meanwhile, earthbending soldiers were preying on the weakness of their fellow citizens, robbing and bullying the townspeople that they were meant to protect. Zuko stands up to the soldiers and is invited by Lee to have dinner with his family. Zuko seems to see a bit of himself in this boy Lee, and he gives him a dagger. After Zuko leaves, the soldiers try to steal the family's food, and Lee pulls out a knife which prompts them to kidnap him. The mother seeks Zuko and begs for him to rescue Lee. Zuko decides to risk his life for these strangers and to save this boy. While at first he wards off most of the soldiers with ease, Zuko is quickly overpowered by the platoon leader, who unleashes his earthbending. Zuko realizes that he will not survive unless he unsheaths his greatest weapon, his firebending. This wildcard allowed Zuko to quickly tip the scale of fate and defeat his enemy. Zuko's victory and survival only came after embracing his identity.
My name is Zuko, son of Ursa and Fire Lord Ozai, prince of the Fire Nation and heir to the throne.
Zuko shows mercy to the very man who tried to kill him and attempts to offer friendship to the boy he saved. Instead, he is met with rejection and hatred.
No, I hate you!
Zuko carries on without any malice towards these people. While Zuko didn't directly resolve his theft of the ostrich horse, he demonstrated his change of heart by offering everything he had to strangers who had taken him in. Additionally, Zuko paid a steep price for this redemption. He suffered physically and almost lost his life. He also took responsibility for his actions by addressing his true identity. But Zuko's redemption wasn't exactly a smooth journey. Zuko needed to demonstrate that these changes weren't just surface level, but deeply rooted into his being. He was tested in a chapter called Crossroads. Here, Zuko meets face to face with Katara, and she spoke of the horrible things that Zuko did to her and her friends.
You're a terrible person, you know that? Trying to capture the world's last hope for peace? Spreading war and violence and hatred is in your blood.
She also spoke of the horrors that the Fire Nation inflicted on her people.
The Fire Nation took my mother away from me.
Katara expects Zuko to angrily lash out at her, but instead he humbly accepts his errors.
I'm sorry.
And he expresses remorse. Then at a critical point, she and the Avatar are fighting against Zuko's malevolent young sister, and Azula claims to offer Zuko redemption. She claims that if Zuko helps her defeat the Avatar, then he will be redeemed as her father will accept him once more.
It's not too late for you, Zuko. You can still redeem yourself. You will have your honor back. You will have Father's love.
Seeking validation from his family, Zuko betrays the Avatar, and his betrayal results in Azula unleashing a lethal blow, killing the Avatar. Aang is miraculously saved, but Zuko's bad decision leads to the collapse of the Earth Kingdom and his uncle's imprisonment. Once again, we're brought back to square one, a point where it seems impossible for Zuko to be redeemed. This scene sort of reminds me of one from Shadiversity's book. Just as Katara confronts Zuko and holds him accountable for his wrongdoings, and those of his empire, Daylen is confronted by Lyra, one of his past victims. Here, Lyra speaks of the horrible abuse that she underwent as a teenager, which ended up leading to her aborting an unwanted baby and making herself infertile. The key difference here is that Lyra thinks she's talking to Dayless' son. He doesn't accept his identity or directly acknowledge his past crimes. Instead, he pretends to merely be the son of the perpetrator. It is true that Shad describes his character Daylen as feeling guilty for his past actions, but guilt of past actions isn't enough to redeem someone. Zuko took responsibility for his actions by accepting his identity and also by suffering for his errors. Change needs to come at a cost, a physical and spiritual price that will push the character to their limits. Zuko's betrayal in Crossroads is Zuko's most damning error, and it wasn't just an act of physical violence by attacking the Avatar and his friends, as Zuko had already attacked them dozens of times. What made this so horrible is that Zuko had betrayed Katara's trust. Zuko convinced Katara that he'd changed, and she was willing to use her magical spirit water to remove his scar. Luckily, Katara didn't use her special water, as she would later need this to revive Aang and bring him back from death. Wounds of betrayal are very deep and painful, and they're also very difficult to heal. Zuko realizes that his father intends to genocide an entire nation and that he cannot support such evil, so he seeks out the Avatar in an attempt to train him in firebending, so that the Avatar can defeat Zuko's father, the Fire Lord.
I'm good now, and, well, I think I should join your group. Oh, and I can teach firebending.
While Aang needs to learn firebending, he and his friends refuse.
There's no way we can trust you after everything you've done. We'll never let you join us.
Zuko humbly offers himself as their prisoner and pleads for their forgiveness for all his wrongdoings. While this doesn't erase the wrongdoings, it demonstrates a genuine change of heart, and is very different from how Daylen masked his identity when confronted by Lyra for his crimes. Daylen would later stop a terroristic plot from killing many innocents, but before that, he never took responsibility for his actions. It would almost be like Zuko showing up to Team Avatar and telling them, "Hi, I'm Pedro. Now let me teach the Avatar firebending." Sure, he would have been doing something good, but he would have been avoiding a deep-seated conflict within himself. The biggest flaw in Daylen's redemption arc is a lack of responsibility. A prime example being when he rescues a bunch of girls from being trafficked by a group of sky pirates. It turns out that their captain, Blackheart, is Daylen's son. Daylen is warned beforehand to extend mercy to any pirate that may be able to change. But when his son begs for mercy, Daylen decides to kill him, and he does so without a second thought. Perhaps Shadiversity intended the scene as a means to demonstrate Daylen's contempt for evil and evildoers, but it neglects the fact that this evildoer has likely risen to commit these heinous crimes because his father neglected to raise him to be a good person. While Blackheart was an adult now, he was still Daylen's son, and Daylen still had a duty to protect and guide him, especially since he had begged for mercy, and especially since Daylen was told to help anyone who might be able to change. I think begging for mercy is part of that. Daylen made a horrible mess of his family life, and it was his responsibility to at least try and clean it up. Killing his son seems very hypocritical when considering the fact that his own crimes were substantially worse, and his son wouldn't have committed these crimes had he not been raised differently, or had his father not abused one of his concubines and conceived him to begin with. Zuko was forced to confront his past actions, and even though the Avatar and his friends didn't forgive him, Zuko had still changed. Their trust was eventually earned back, but it wasn't a part of his redemption. Zuko's redemption came from inward as he had accepted his past deeds and resolved to live differently. Additionally, Zuko suffered similar pains to those he had inflicted on others. Just as Zuko had relentlessly hunted after the Avatar and his friends, he was also later relentlessly hunted by a boy named Jet. Zuko also stung Katara with a deep betrayal, and helped Azula strike Aang with a lethal burst of lightning. Zuko was later stung by a similar deadly blow as he saved Katara, demonstrating that he deeply regretted hurting the Avatar, and also hurting Katara. Zuko is the one who had to suffer and pay for his own crimes, whereas Daylen was making others suffer and pay for his crimes. Daylen's supposed redemption stems from two main points. The first was not killing his former victims Lyra and Auric as they confronted him. Both wanted to kill Daylen, but after Daylen overpowers them, he decides not to kill them, and he seems to be viewed as merciful, which is pretty strange considering that he had abused one of them when she was just a teenager. The second main point of redemption seems to come after Lyra and Auric eventually forgive him, causing them all to feel warm and fuzzy inside. Zuko's redemption, on the other hand, is internal.
No one can give you your honor. It's something you earn for yourself by choosing to do what's right. I'm sorry for what I did to you.
Even after he's rejected by the Avatar and his friends, it's clear to him and the audience he's reformed.
Why am I so bad at being good?
Even if he hadn't been accepted by the good guys, it's pretty clear he still would have found a way to fight against evil. The final detail that makes Zuko's redemption so sweet is that he becomes the next Fire Lord, and while he doesn't feel worthy for this role, he uses it to establish an era of peace and prosperity. The most powerful symbol of redemption in Asia is the White Lotus. It blossoms in the muddiest of waters, and yet it rises above the filth, unblemished and pure. In a similar regard, Zuko is born in one of the worst scenarios, and yet he blossoms into an enlightened leader. This element of enlightened elevation is completely missing from Shad's story. Rather than rising into something great, he becomes a beat cop, a position in which he won't be able to heal the world or undo the vast amounts of damage he caused. Daylen's arc is a writing lesson on what not to do, and Avatar: The Last Airbender is a masterclass on redemption.
I meant you no disrespect. I am your loyal son.
Like and subscribe, Prince Zuko. Suffering will be your teacher.